Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to have you into today's session today. Now, one of the big questions that's always come out is how does one become a top performing agent? Well, rumor has it that a lot of these particular agents went on a destiny tour. They took this traveling, I want to say it's like 1,000-mile journey up a mountain. And at the top of the mountain, there was this individual standing there with a cup. They each took a sip out of that cup and snapped their fingers. They became top producing agents. And I know that that sounds like a fable. Well, it is. The truth of it is, our top performing agents are just like you and me. They're human beings that really have taken their business to the next level. And the reason they've taken their business to the next level is, well, they work hard at it. But what do they do differently? Joining me today, I've got the one and only Brad Neille, the one that really can blow a tune that makes everybody tap their feet. But more importantly, it's an individual that's really taken real estate and really gone through this entire journey. But before we jump into Brad Neille, the top producing agent, we're going to pull the curtain back a little bit. Brad, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Stuart. How are you doing?
Oh, no, always fantastic, always fantastic. So one of the big questions that's come through to myself is there must be this magic sauce, this food, this water that top producing agents actually drink or eat to become top producing agents. So I actually want to say, let's go back a bit. Who was Brad Neille before real estate?
I was going to say, if you live in Joburg, we don't actually know what water is. So we don't have much of that. But yeah, I was, I don't even remember what life was like before real estate. I've been in the game for so long. I started in real estate as a rookie back in 2006, 20 years ago this year. So yeah, it's a long time ago. But before real estate, I was a student, essentially. I studied computer science at Pretoria University. Then after I finished my studies, I went over to the UK and spent a couple of years in Scotland, traveling around Europe and that, just seeing more of the world. And then when I got back to South Africa, early 2026, a mate of mine, I was looking for work, and the mate of mine said to me, why don't you come and interview? I'm a real estate agent. Come and we're looking for more estate agents to join the company. Why don't you come and interview? And that was the beginning of my real estate career. And I worked as a rookie at Pam Golding Properties under a dragon of an estate agent who grilled me for a year. And but it was a good learning curve because I learned to do things the right way. And yeah, that was the beginning.
So that magic chalice was actually being grilled by the dragon lady, which I'm sure is something that you will never forget. But it's actually something that's quite key. And it's quite common when I've spoken to a lot of top producing agents. The start of their career was not just jump in and let's become a top producing agent. For many of them, it actually started out working under somebody, collaborating with them, learning from the people that have done it for many, many years. If you actually reflect back on that very first year as a rookie, now I know it was only about 3 years ago, but if you reflect back on that first year as a rookie, what was the biggest lesson that you took out of it?
Sure, I'd say just the basics, honesty, consistency, integrity. Do things the right way. Don't try and cut corners. That's really what I learned in that year. The importance of arriving on time. Simple things like that. Communicating well, written and verbal communication. That was really what I learned in that year. Was about doing the basics right. And it was fantastic having a mentor, somebody who I could look up to, who could point me out when I was doing the wrong thing, and put me in the right direction. And I had a number of mentors throughout my career.
Perfect. If you had started your rookie like a number of real estate agents do at the moment, where they're really just running around a little bit blind, and you didn't have that mentor, that person that you could look up to in your first year, how different would your journey have been up till today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been very different, because there's a sharp learning curve when you come into the real estate industry, and you need somebody to hold your hand through that, So I was mentored by a gentleman called Ronald Enick, who's still a preeminent real estate agent in Joburg to this day. He was my managing director when I was at Pam Golding, and he was a teacher by profession. So he had a trainer's heart, and so he used to train all of us agents every week on a Wednesday. I remember going into the TAC, the Killarney Country Club, every Wednesday to go and sit and listen to his training. And the lessons he taught us, I still remember today. Things like the pendulum of the swinging in favor of the buyer versus the seller, or things like price counseling, the value of price counseling your seller accurately, or all of those kind of little lessons. So Ronald was fantastic at that, and so I'd encourage everybody to find their mentor, find somebody who can hold them accountable and guide them like that.
Absolutely. I remember it was years ago, I think it was back in 2003, 2004. I had a mentor that actually shared these words, and I've shared it many, many times. Nobody succeeds alone. And I think this is absolutely key. You'll actually see through the journey of any top individual, and regardless of what industry they're in, they never succeed alone. They've always got the support, family, friends, the colleagues around them, mentors, coaches, trainers, etc. So it's a big lesson, and thank you for sharing that. So now you're in real estate. You've gone through your first year of being overshadowed by this dragon lady who's really starting to instill high levels of communication, trainings every Wednesday. That's really instilling some great knowledge into you, that's building up your self-confidence. But all of that on its own doesn't take someone to become a top producer. What actually drives you to success? What is that key element for you personally?
Look, I mean, I think you've got to have your why, your big why. You got to know why you're doing this business, because there'll be times when you can suffer big knocks, and if you don't have a big why, the motivation will be strong to get out of the game. So you really have to have something that keeps you going when you're in those low moments. For me, that motivation is my family. I've got 3 little kids, 3 beautiful daughters, and so that's why I do this, is is for my kids, for my family, for my wife, to put food on the table, and they're my big motivation. So yeah, I think you really got to have a strong reason for why you'd want to do this, and that certainly is that for me.
Absolutely. And that's why I actually, put more of a direction towards personal, because what we find with so many people's big why, when I coach agents, they start by, well, my big why is to make lots of money. My big why is to buy a car. My big why is to buy a house. But that's not actually just a big why. That's actually a big dream, a big vision, a big goal. But when it starts coming down to something that's emotional, something that can actually put a tear in your eye when you have a conversation about it, that's what a big why is all about when you're actually going forward. So when you look at your typical day, I mean, you've got your big why around you all the time, which is the benefit of working remotely. So you're reminded why you're doing this on a daily basis. But let's actually take it into the business side of it. What does a typical day for Brad look like? What does a typical week for Brad look like?
So we've got a fairly set routine. I work with my colleague Tyrone sitting here in front of me. So we've got an office at my house, and we get together pretty regularly. But on a Monday, generally speaking, we in the office making follow-up calls from our Sunday show day. So we generally have show days on any given Sunday, collecting names and numbers of all the show day buyers. On a Monday, we spend the morning typically following up with those buyers and capturing all the information in our database. and booking follow-up appointments. Often we're doing valuation appointments from those buyers. One of the questions we ask in our show days is, do you have to sell your current home? And that generates a lot of seller leads for us. So we try and chase those seller leads as soon as possible after the show day. So Monday, that's typically what we're doing, follow-ups. Tuesday, we have our team meeting. So we've got an assistant called Neille who works with us. And so the three of us get together at a coffee shop down the road. Tuesday morning, we talk about feedback from the show day. We talk about which houses we're going to put on show the coming Sunday. We talk about so we've got a sort of set meeting agenda. We talk about deals that are in the pipeline. Where are they at in terms of what's still outstanding? How far away are we from lodging at the deeds office? That kind of thing. Then we talk about potential new sales. Which properties are we getting close to closing, and what do we still need to do to close those ones? What else? We talk about valuations, which we're doing in the week. Who's going to handle those and the strategy for those. We also talk about any marketing campaigns or social media, which we're doing, or so we kind of map out all of that stuff in the meeting. And then so that's our meeting on a Tuesday. And then sort of rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday through Friday, we're typically doing viewing appointments and valuations. We also focus a lot on meeting face-to-face with our sellers whenever we're doing price counseling sessions with our sellers. If we're giving them feedback from the show day, we generally do that face-to-face rather than over the phone. So we want to go and see them. We give them the feedback, and then we talk about price if the price is an issue. So we say to them, we get in the feet through the door. We've had 20 buyers to the show day, what have you, but no offers yet. The only reason could be the price. We need to adjust the price so that we can make the listing more attractive. So those price counseling sessions are vital. So Tyrone and I typically focus on those sort of things. Viewings, offers to purchase, negotiating those, price counseling our sellers, signing mandates, and closing deals. That's really what we want to focus on. Renee handles most of the admin for us, which really takes an admin load off of our shoulders. And then obviously Sunday, ahead of the Sunday show days, we're preparing for the show day. So Renee will mark our listings as on show, typically on a Thursday. We've got a guy who does our boards for us. So Nelson will put up the boards on a Sunday morning. We'll put up the on-show Sunday boards on a Thursday, and then put up the pointer boards for us on a Sunday morning. And then we're on show, typically 3 to 5 on a Sunday afternoon, and we have anything from 2 to 4 or 5 houses on show on any given Sunday. So, and that's the kind of the rhythm of the week, and it just rolls and repeats the following week.
So rinse and repeat. And one key element that I'm getting out of this was actually 2 key elements. The first one is the work that you do is really focused on income producing activities. I never once heard you say, I'm going to go onto social media and do a post. I'm going to go and do this particular marketing or do this kind of admin work. You've got Renee that's doing all of that. So having the focus just on income producing activities, are you finding that you're able to get through to more clients at a much higher level and a higher quantity of clients?
Absolutely. So definitely we want to try and focus on those income producing activities. And I think that's one of the things that Ronald Enick taught me back in the day was that, if you work back your income over a year, let's say you want to earn whatever it is, R1 million in a year, and you break that down into what you earn per hour, your rate per hour, in other words, if you've got 50 weeks in a year divided by 5 working days in a week divided by 8 working hours in a day, your rate will work out to something like 500 or 1,000 rand an hour, if that's what you're expecting to earn. So that's your hourly rate. Why are you focusing on activities which which really are only bringing you in 50 or 100 rand an hour. So focus on those 500 or 1,000 rand an hour activities, and delegate those 50 or 100 rand an hour activities to an assistant or to somebody else who can assist you with those.
Absolutely. And this is something that I've always said to agents. If you are doing the administration work, you're not a real estate agent, you're an admin. So just keep that in the top of your mind. The second point that you raised, which I know there's a lot of real estate agents out there that are going, show days. Show days are yesterday. We don't do show days. They don't work. But yet I'm hearing that you're doing 2 to 5 show days almost every single weekend, and it's a big part of your business.
Absolutely.
Why are show days still key for you?
Sure, Stuart, I think they're central to our business. They really are. I mean, I've always done show days right from 2006 when I started at Pam Golding. So it's kind of built into my DNA as an estate agent, really. It's just how I was trained, and it's how a lot of my competitors operate. But I really believe in show days. I think they're kind of the one and only interface that we have with our public. It's a fantastic opportunity to put boards up every Sunday, to consistently have the brand in the face of your market, and to be interacting with those leads. So show days are a fantastic source of buyer leads. We're finding more than ever at the moment that buyers are attending show days, and because they're busy in the week, they're working, they're dropping kids off at school, they're just hectic. They don't have time to come out and view properties in the week. Whereas we find that on a Sunday, they're more relaxed. They can take their time, and particularly if you've got more than one house on show at any given time, you can send them from one show to another, and you kind of keep them in the net that way. You're not sending them off to the competition, and they're more likely to buy something from you that way as well. So we're finding any given Sunday, 10, 15 buyers come through a show day. So those are 10 to 15 new buyer leads, which you didn't have in your database before. And as I said, they're a fantastic sort of seller leads as well. First question we ask the buyer when they come through the door is, are you selling your current home? And if the answer is yes, obviously, where is your home? And may we assist you with the valuation of your home? So right there is an opportunity to pick up seller leads. And then what we often do with ahead of a show day is invite neighbors. So we'll do what we call 5-5-10s. If we're launching a new property to the market, like we're doing this coming Sunday, we've got a new property in Parkview and another new one in Greenside. We will advertise. Well, we'll drop a little flyer off. 5 neighbors to the left of the house, 5 neighbors to the right of the house, and 10 neighbors across the road. That's why we call them 5-5-10s. And we invite those neighbors to come to the show day. And it seems a bit counterintuitive. Why would you do that? But the reason we invite show days is firstly because, or neighbors rather, is firstly because neighbors are the best advocates for the suburb. If you've got neighbors in your show day and they're chatting to your buyers and they're interacting with your buyers, they're going to be saying, I've lived in this suburb for 20 years and it's just wonderful. And my kids have grown up here and they've all gone to school. And so they're the best sellers for your best advocates for your suburb, number one. Number two is often the sellers have friends or family who they're looking to buy next because they want their friends or family to be close to them. So they're often a good source of buyer leads as well. And number three is if a seller attends a show day, there's often a reason for that. They're trying to do a little bit of research in the market and see what their neighbors are asking and what other properties in the area are selling for. So I actually love it when sellers come to show days because, again, my first question is, are you needing an updated market estimate of your home? And it's amazing the number of seller leads we get from just asking that simple question. And that's directly from show days. So show days, in my opinion, are an absolute must. Yes, they're an anachronism in this day and age, but I think they still work, and there's no reason not to do them.
Absolutely. And it's almost like if you want to buy a brand new car, You don't just click online, you actually go and test drive it. So it's always nice to go and see it. One of the big things that I've always said with clients that I coached, especially when it comes to show days, and I did this personally in my business as well in selling properties, is when you're having a show day, for most agents, their almost primary goal is to sell the house. And I used to change that particular mindset. I used to have it as a primary goal is not to sell the house. And most people say, well, that's crazy. I said, no, my primary goal is to get another listing. And the reason for that is that property will sell already. If it's priced right and it's the right location, it will sell okay. But if you sell it on a show day and you don't get another listing, it means that you're one stock item down. And that means you've got to do even more work to get another listing. So I always had that. If you have that primary focus, which means when a client comes through that front door, the first thing you're going to ask them is, hey, do you need to sell? Because by the way, 60% of buyers, they need to sell their property in order to buy this property. So you can have this mindset. Go for it.
And another really important thing is that they're a useful price counseling tool. You know, I would, if I wasn't doing show houses, I think it would be very difficult to price counsel my seller, because what do I tell my seller? If I'm struggling to get feet through the door, perhaps it's overpriced, and I'm not getting the inquiries, I'm not getting the viewings, it's very difficult for me to then sit with my seller and say, listen, we need to drop your price, because the seller's going to push back and say, but you've had nobody through my house. How can you say that? Whereas if your seller sees that you've had 80 or whatever, 20 boards up on a Sunday for the past 2 Sundays, you've had 20 or 30 buyers through your home and you've had no offers, it's a much easier conversation to have with your seller. Sorry, I'm going to close my WhatsApp down here. It's making a noise.
No problem. That's all your celebrities, all your buyers are all sending you messages and saying, Brad, we can hear you. We need you to find us our next property. Well, one of the big things, and it's coming out quite clear, show days is a big part of your business. And I know that a number of agents think that, well, if we just tick that little box to say it's on show this weekend, sit back, wait. Oh, I remembered I need to put up a few boards. I've only got 3 of them, so I'll put 3 around. And I sit and I wait for my buyers to come. Now, I know the approach that you take is not that way. And if we look at what is the key component that makes a show day successful, what do you do with your team to make sure that it is successful and you don't have 3 hours of twiddling your thumbs?
You're doing nothing. Yeah. So we maintain an active database of buyers. I think that's critical, is have a database, whether it's a PropCon database or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. We use a system called LA CRM. Because it integrates with so many other things. I'll talk about that in a bit, but LA CRM is kind of the heart, the engine of our business. It really, it's where we capture every single conversation we have with our clients, every piece of contact information, all email communication, everything goes into that database. But we also set up buyer pipelines, buyer leads within those contacts. So it allows us to tag a buyer with a pipeline or a wish list, I think PropCon calls it, where you can say this is what the buyer wants: 3 to 4 million rand, 4 bedrooms, 1,000 square meters, 2 bathrooms, cottage, double garage. So all those leads go, all those requirements get added to the buyer as a lead, and then it allows you to then filter out your database according to your buyer needs. So if, for example, the house that we got on show on Sunday in Parkview, 4.3 million rand, it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom home with a single garage and a cottage, we can then filter out that whole database. And then what we do is we phone and WhatsApp and email all our buyers within that price range category and invite them to the show day. So that's what we're doing right now, is inviting buyers to our show days. So that generates a lot of competition. To give you an example, we just sold a house yesterday in Craigle Park. We priced that at 3 million rand, which was a very competitive price for the area. But we did the same thing. We had an existing database of a number of buyers who were looking in that price range. And then when we launched the listing, I think we had something like, 50 inquiries, Tyrone? Yes. Within the space of 4 days, we had 50 inquiries on the home, and we invited all of those buyers into a mini show day on Monday afternoon. 20 of them pitched. we took an offer from the show day and we closed it yesterday. So it just generates that momentum. And that's why I say show days are that engine that creates that momentum. Just a brilliant tool for doing that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So that is the key marketing for your business, is the actual show days, not only for the buyers, building up that buyers database, but also getting new listings as you're starting to go through. So let's have a look at getting new listings. And I want to look at new listings outside of your show days, because we've established that the buyers coming through, 60% of them need to sell, give a valuation, and you'll go through. What are the methods that you use to get listings, but not the show days? What is that method that you're using at the moment?
So, I mean, we think we follow the traditional methods. We track the existing stock. So we make note of our competitors' listings. So I think it's critical to know your market. So we keep within our LACRM database, we make a note of all our competitors' listings, what price they come on the market at, when they get listed, and as the price comes down, and when they sell, how long they're on the market for. So we know those numbers. And so that's one source of new listings, is the existing sellers who are on the market with our competitor agents. Because often they don't sell with the first agent. And so, our process is we contact that seller as soon as they come on the market, wish them well with the sale of their home, and ask them if we can keep in contact with them during their mandate to see if they've sold or not, and then to offer our assistance if they haven't managed to sell their home once their mandate ends. And obviously part of that is to know how long the mandate's for, so we ask them when the mandate expires, and then in our database we set up a reminder to contact that agent before the mandate ends, and to offer our assistance to assist them to sell the home if it isn't already sold. So that's a really good source of new listings, is the current stock.
Absolutely. And you know what? Recycled stock, or expired listings as we commonly call them, is actually one of the best, because you can actually show off a better level of service to your particular clients. Now, throughout this, you've started to mention a lot of systems and tools that assist you in your business. This is not something done on the back of a piece of paper, or you're trying to remember it. You're using tools. Just expand on these tools. If you did not have these tools, how different would your business look?
Yeah, I think it would be impossible to run a business without tools. I think you're just flying blind, and you're relying on luck. And because we human beings, we simply can't remember everything, and it's so easy for opportunities to fall through the cracks if you're trying to rely on your memory. So you got to have systems, and that's one thing that I really took away from eXpCon this week, was the importance of having systems. And I think we've got a system in our business, but there's definitely room for us to improve it. And I was blown away. I think one of my big takeaways from eXpCon was Seth Ziegler's talk. I don't know who of you guys were able to attend that talk, but he's outstanding. I mean, he's the innovation officer, chief innovation officer for eXp worldwide, and he was talking about the power of AI, and not in terms of the traditional forms, the traditional ways we think of using it, but in terms of using AI to build systems. And I think that's a huge opportunity for us, and that's something that we've all got to look at. So I'd encourage you really to firstly watch Seth Ziegler's talk. I think the whole thing was recorded. So when the library of videos comes out for eXpCon, make sure you watch that video, because Seth's talk just blew me away.
Absolutely. So little spoiler alert, and I'm glad that you brought Seth into this, because little spoiler alert, and this is not an advert, but I'll throw it in as an advert. Coming soon to a session near you is Seth Ziegler. So just look out for that. That is coming. So it is all done behind the scenes. So I'm excited for it, because it's going to be blowing away, first global session. But anyway, let's roll it back onto these systems and tools that you're actually operating. Sure. You mentioned, I think it's LACRM, something that's new. I've never heard about it before. Just pull the curtain back. I'm sure there's a number of agents that are going, what is this? What are you talking about? What does it look like?
So CRM stands for Contact Relationship Management. It's just a tool which you can use to manage the relationships with your clients. So, and LA CRM happens to be a web-based system. It is a paid-for service. I think you pay $15 per month per user. The beauty with it is that you can integrate your team with it. So in our case, we've got 3 users on the system: Tyrone, myself, and Renee. Any information that gets put in that database is visible to all 3 of us. And so we can see at any moment in time what the communication has been with the client, no matter where we are in the world. So, and we can see that on our phones and on our laptops. And so that's critical for me, is that we can all have sight of the information. It just means that when you're speaking to a client, you're sounding professional. You can say, oh, I see Tyrone phoned you last week, and we showed you this house last week, and that was the feedback that you gave him. That kind of thing. It just makes you prepared for the call. Also, you can capture things like the client's birth date or their wedding anniversary and that sort of things, that allows you to set up those communications with your client, and again, make you look more professional. What else? So CRM integrates with everything. LA CRM rather integrates with our calendar. So it means that we can share calendars with each other. We can put appointments in each other's calendars. What else? It integrates with MailChimp. So we're looking at doing MailChimp mail merges to our database as well. And you can do all kinds of integrations with MailChimp, Zapier as well. I can chat to you about that a bit more if it's of interest. But any inquiries, so one of the automations we've set up in our business is any inquiry that we get from Property24 or from private property or from our website is captured automatically in the system. So it's not like we physically have to capture the data. It's captured automatically from the email that comes through from Property24. And it sets up a follow-up with that client. It creates a buyer need. And then it also, what we've just done now is set up an automated email response to that client. So they're getting an immediate response. So they're not having to wait 24 hours or 48 hours for us to respond to them, or that they fall through the cracks and we don't respond at all. They're getting an immediate response where they're booking, they have an opportunity to book a call with us in our Calendly link. So we've set up that automation where they're getting an immediate email response saying, thanks for your inquiry. We'd love to chat. We'd encourage you to book a call with us so we can have a more detailed discussion about your requirements and find out if this property is a good fit for you. So that's something we're trying to roll out in our business at the moment, is automating responses so that you are immediately responding to a client rather than have them wait and possibly not hear from you at all.
Absolutely. And what's absolutely amazing about that is when you put automation into your business, it becomes scalable. And that's a very important note for everybody listening to this particular session, is you don't want to be going into the future as a solo agent all the time. You will get to a point where you need to do an expansion on your team. It always starts with administrators so that you can offload those administrative tasks. As Brad mentioned, the 50 Rand an hour type of service. So that you can focus on the 1,000 Rand an hour service, because that's what's obviously going to be coming through from your particular clients, and you can start to grow. So automation is a great way to have that scalability in your particular business. Now, there's been a few questions that have come through in the actual chat box, and I want to just pose them through to yourself. So after a show day, do you follow up with all the buyers to check if they've found another property or offered them something else to them, so that they still become like a future seller? In other words, you carry on that communication. That's not just a once-off show day. Hey, thanks, cheers, bye, see you next year. You keep that conversation going through to them. At what point do you stop communicating with them?
So once they're in our database, they never leave unless they're asked to be taken off. But the idea is to build that database. I think we've got about 10,500 email addresses in our database currently. Buyers, sellers, across the board, homeowners. So that's a gold mine right there. Is that email database, and so that's, I think, the primary datum that we collect from our show day buyers is their email address and their cell phone number. And yes, follow-up is crucial. So Monday, as I said, we're sitting on the phone, following up with all the show day buyers, asking them what they thought, if they had any further interest in the house, if there was any questions that they had, if they want to arrange another viewing, or if they're considering submitting an offer. So all of that obviously gets captured in our database. And yeah, if the buyer isn't interested, or if they continue to look, then we offer them other properties, definitely. So that's something that we actively do, is cross-sell them on other properties. So that's why that follow-up is crucial. But then, like you just mentioned, one of the most important things is to add that buyer to your email list, and then so that you're communicating regularly with that buyer. Ultimately, that buyer is going to become a seller, and you want to have built that relationship with them right from the beginning. So definitely, that's something that we definitely implement in our business.
Absolutely. So one thing to remember, stats actually came out. It used to be an average of 7 years that a person owned their home. It's now increased to 13 years. So if you maintain that database on a continual basis, and I know for a lot of people, they think 13 years, it's a long time. Actually not. 13 years goes quite quickly. We're actually now 6 years past COVID. So it goes past extremely quickly. But when you hit that 13-year mark, you've already got a relationship. They already know who you are, who they're going to call. Well, obviously, it's going to be yourself. And then, Brad, jumping onto another question that came into the chat box, you mentioned 2 to 5 show days happening on a weekend, but you're a team of 3. When you're running with 5 show days, how do you maintain people at those show days that are in your control? Do you have sitters? Do you have other agents? Give us an idea of how do you manage multiple show days?
So yeah, we do use sitters, and we've got a team of sitters who've sat for me for many years, so they know how I work, they know the stock that we have on the market, and we try to avoid using sitters if we can, because sellers generally prefer to have you as the agent sitting at their show day. But we get around it by saying to the seller, if we are putting a sitter in the show day, we say to them, the benefit to having your home on show is that even though I'm not sitting at your home, I'll be on show at a house down the road, and we'll be sending buyers to your home. And if the buyer is interested in making an offer on your home, obviously either Tyrone or I is available to chat to them. So that usually puts their mind at rest. But the fact that we've got a team of experienced sitters also helps. We can call on them, and they're experienced. They know what they're doing. So sitters are important. You can't always be present at every single show day. We do need to use sitters occasionally. We try and say to our sellers, at least for the first or second show day, either Tyrone or I will sit there. But if it means a third or a fourth or a subsequent show day, then we might need to put a sitter in. But at least for the first or second show day, we commit to one of us sitting there. And as I said, that usually puts their mind at rest. But we can discuss this with them up front when we take the mandate. So it doesn't come as a surprise to them that we're going to put a sitter at their home. They're prepared for it ahead of time.
Absolutely. And a question that's come in, I mean, you're having sitters there, and I'll answer this one. Do they have to have FFCs? Well, the big thing here is they're not actually giving advice. They're not selling the property. They're not doing any duties of a real estate agent. In fact, what they're doing is they're just a tour guide. You could have the seller as a sitter, if you think about that way. But as long as they're not giving any form of advice or any structure, they're taking through the property, and they are relying on the actual real estate agent that has the Fidelity Fund certificate to give that advice. So you're always on call should something come through. And I'm sure you've had it where you're not at a particular property and a sitter gives you a call and says, hey, Brad or Tyrone, I've got someone right in front of me ready with a big suitcase of cash. How soon can you come running? I'm sure you've had that once or twice in your time, maybe not a suitcase. Yeah. How quick can you get to the property? Obviously, your show days aren't 30, 40 kilometers apart. You keep them very close so that you can circle.
Yeah, that's it.
How far apart?
So we service a quite small area of the parks, Parkview, Parkwood, Parktown North, Parkhurst, Craigle Park. So that's kind of the areas that we focus on. We do take on listings outside of that area, and we do put them on show as well. We had an apartment in Sandown during the course of last year, so that was a bit further away. But yeah, I mean, we're always available. Either Tyrone or myself are happy to jump in a car and go and meet with the client immediately if they want to. It's all about, Ronald always used to say, everything you do in real estate, you do really quickly, except when it comes to negotiating an offer. So that means jumping in your car immediately and going to see the buyer, then you do that. So definitely we're always available for that kind of thing. And offers are paramount.
Absolutely. That's the number one part of your business. Take a listing,
And
take an offer. That's the duty of a real estate agent.
definitely.
Now, the last question that's come through on the chat box, and this one is taking it to a little bit more of a serious note. We know that within South Africa, crime is always top of mind. And when we're doing show days, there are sellers out there that they're a little bit skeptical of show days because we don't know who's coming through the property. Are they just coming to scope out the property so that they can rob the property in a couple of days? Or is it a genuine buyer? What measures do you take to make sure that you and your sitters, one, are safe, but two, what measures are put in place to make sure that the buyers that are coming through, I know it's hard to say, but are more legitimate than criminals?
So one thing that we're trying to adopt at the moment in our business is what we're calling doing a property strategy call. Rather than a buyer consultation, we're calling it a property strategy call. So when a buyer receives an immediate automated follow-up from us, part of that email is a Calendly link, as I mentioned. And the Calendly link takes the client to a property strategy call booking page, where they can book a consultation, a 15-minute consultation with Tyrone or myself in our calendars. And that consultation is where we pre-qualify the buyer. We try and find out what they're looking for in terms of accommodation, what their finance needs are, do they have to sell their current home, all of that kind of information, which obviously is captured into our database. But in doing that strategy call, you can qualify the buyer a lot better than meeting them for the first time at the viewing appointment. So I think that automatically filters out a lot of the sort of looky-loos from the serious buyers, and the fact that they're booking a call with you already tells you that they're serious. But yeah, I mean, it is a legitimate concern. Obviously, there have been incidents of agents and sellers, being victims of crime as a result of show days and that kind of thing. So you've got to be conscious of that. We tell our sellers, ahead of a show day, we advise them to lock away all their valuables. So things like cameras and jewelry and laptops, that kind of thing, lock that stuff away so that it's not accessible. I actually lost my own laptop last year at a show day. So I didn't follow my own advice. I left the laptop on the table and somebody helped himself to it. It just happened to be a very busy show day, and turned my back for a minute and the laptop was gone. So yes, it can happen, but you can mitigate those risks by, as I said, preparing your seller, qualifying the buyer well. Also, what we often do for a show day is to put a security guard at the gate. If it's a particularly vulnerable property or the seller feels vulnerable, we'll put a guard at the gate who can then capture the vehicle registration information, that kind of thing, so that at least the seller feels a little less vulnerable. And we've got a record of everybody who's coming through the property.
Absolutely. Having that register is absolutely key, and something that I will actually say it's a great way of building relationships with an external vendor is the local security companies. They love to give presents, and whenever I did show days, I would reach out to the local security company, say, hey, by the way, I'm doing a show day. You're more than welcome to have somebody there. They call them a standoff, where you can actually hand out your flyers and brochures to the actual community, and it gives a presence. They love it, and they love to have that as a standoff, and that actually deters anybody that comes through. So it's always a great way to come through. Brad, it's an honor and privilege to have you in this particular session. Is there any final words of wisdom that you can share with our agents as we lead out on the session?
Yeah, definitely, Stuart. Well, thank you so much for having me, and for everybody sharing your time with me. But just a last thought, again, check out that video from Seth Siegler at eXp. He mentions a book in his talk called The AI-Driven Leader by a guy called Jeff Woods. Check out that book, The AI-Driven Leader by Jeff Woods. I'm busy listening to the audiobook version of that book at the moment. But Jeff Woods talks about how to use ChatGPT to drive the strategy in your business. And it really is something that we need to take note of, because he, as Seth mentions in his speech, he says within the next 5 years, the nature of work will be totally different from what it is now. We're going through an information revolution at the moment, and AI is going to be a part of our businesses, whether we like it or not. And I'd encourage you really to check that out and see how you can use automation in your business. We were talking earlier about not focusing on those 50 or 100 Rand an hour activities. Many of those activities, and probably something like 75 to 80% of those activities that we do as estate agents on a daily basis, are activities which could be automated. Things like capturing a buyer contact information, following up with buyers. And there was a lot of talk at eXpCon about a platform called lovable.dev. I had never even heard about it before eXpCon, but I've been, as I said, I haven't been able to sleep for the last 4 nights because I've been checking out this lovable.dev thing, and it's phenomenal what you can do with it. You literally give it's a form of AI. You give it a prompt and it generates software for you, which can create these automations. So check out AI-Driven Leader by Jeff Woods. Watch Seth Siegler's video and start playing with lovable.dev, because I think that's going to be transforming our business in the next few years.
Brad, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your journey with us. We were going to end with you playing the saxophone, but you really did that. So we'll leave that for another session. So this was Brad. He's got it here, and there we go. And it's ready to play. Guys, we've just had Brad on the session. It's been an absolute honor and privilege to have Brad joining us, sharing that knowledge as he's going forward. Remember, what you learn from these particular sessions, it's not just about entertainment. It's about application and commitment. Take what you've learned, put it into action. It's working for Brad. You can see it with his results. It will work for you. Is it easy? No, it's not. It is hard work. It's 20 years, but he's managed to master it. And I know for a fact, if you've got questions, reach out to Brad. He's one of the most open and generous guys to help you with that. Brad, again, thank you so much for coming onto the session. I look forward to chatting in the future.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, man. Nice to chat, guys. Thank you.
All right. Cheers for now, guys. Bye.